Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me up when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed. Well, door, in as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
They say opposites attract. That's why the Sleep Number Smart Bed is the best bed for couples. You can each choose what's right for you, whenever you like. You like a bed that feels firm, but they want soft? Sleep Number does that. You want to sleep cooler, while they like to feel warm. Sleep Number does that too. Sleep Number Smart Beds also learn how you sleep and provide you with personalized insights to help you sleep even better. You have to feel it to believe it. Find the bed that's for both of you, only at a Sleep Number store. 9 out of 10 couples say they sleep better on a Sleep Number Smart Bed. Time to catch some Z's. J.D. Power ranks Sleep Number number 1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store. And now during Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed, plus special financing for a limited time. For J.D. Power 2023 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. See store for details.
Welcome to Daddy Issues. Conversations with Dads. A podcast from Fathers and Families Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, it is Jason Acquisto here, along with Larry Smith. It's Daddy Issues, and we are talking today with Leslie Caliz. Leslie is a mental health advocate, former educator, in fact, built connections and taught teenagers for 14 years in the classroom. She's a mother of 2, and she is working on her Master of Social Work. Today we're talking not only about mental health, but suicide prevention, stopping the stigma, bringing the conversation out and making it normal to have the conversation and to prevent suicide. Leslie, so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm a little nervous.
Oh, come on.
I know.
You're in front of tough crowds all the time.
I know, but
This is an easy crowd. Larry, what's up?
Good evening. Good evening.
Nothing to be nervous about. We're just two regular guys. You know my son. Can you believe he is in his 2nd year at University of Louisville?
cannot believe that.
Isn't that crazy? So Leslie used to babysit for my son Anthony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
when he was just a little guy.
Nice.
What would you have been doing at that time?
So I started off as like a teen helper, and then when I was in college, I still worked at Cummins.
Okay. Yeah. So Cummins, Castleton United Methodist Nursery School, Cummins.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Also introduced, Larry has 2 teenage kids, and then he has an adult daughter who's married, and he also has a
grandson and granddaughter too. Yeah.
Okay, I know. And look at him. He's the best looking grandpa in town.
Well,
So,
thank you so much.
yeah.
Hey, you forgot we always start with a dad joke.
Oh yeah. So I've got some dad jokes.
Okay, I came prepared. So just
You got one too? All right, you know
I'm
what?
sure
We
you're
could do a
really
couple.
fine.
Go ahead. You go.
Okay, all right. So, what kind of factory makes okay products?
What kind of factory makes okay products? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
A satisfactory.
A satisfactory. Yeah. You know what, though? It's true. I do. I hate my job. All I do is crush cans all day. It's so depressing.
Love it. Love it.
There's plenty more where that came from.
Awesome.
But Leslie, you can't do a dad joke because you're not a dad, and that would be a faux pas.
Okay.
You could just be a faux pas. Yeah.
Nice.
So by way of introduction, just made those kind of, here's who we are, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just connect with regular dads that are out there fighting the good fight, So here we are. We've done a few episodes, and mental health was something we talked about previously.
Yeah.
But more specifically, I think we wanted to get into and drill down into the suicide stigma reduction and all of the things. It of course has to do with mental health as well. But can you tell us a little bit, Leslie, can you tell us about the work that you've done specifically in this area and the training that you've had around mental health and specifically around preventing suicide?
Yeah. So most of the work that I've done started off in the schools. I was the leader, the co-sponsor of the mental health club that we had at HSE called Bring Change to Mind.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, it was actually a student-run club that was called Stigma Free HSE, but the state of Indiana was trying to get the schools to go with kind of like a model. And so there was some more networking, collaborating, and it was more uniform instead of schools just kind of doing their own thing. But that started from a student that was touched by suicide, and that particular student invited me to come to check out the club that they were trying to start, and so I did. And then it kind of like fell into my lap as like, okay, now you're gonna run it.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being student led, the thing that was really nice was the student voice in what we did. And so they really saw the need for training, for knowing how to talk about suicide. I think that the younger generations, they get it. They want to talk about it. What they would often then say they were struggling with their parents. And so that's why when you mention this, as far as like being for dads and for that crowd that is trying to help the youth that are in their lives, I think that's so important because the kids are talking about it. And so the adults that are uncomfortable or uneducated, that's the barrier I see with a lot of the work that I did with the club. As far as training goes, we were able to get all of our students in the club one particular year QPR certified. And that is an evidence-based program training. It's about 2 hours, and it stands for question, persuade, and refer. And so it's about having those difficult conversations when you think someone might be struggling and not being afraid to ask the direct question, and persuading them to get help and referring them to the help that is available.
Okay. So that's QPR. Question, persuade, and refer. So that's a training that you were able to go through, and that was also offered to students. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, the students. That training, individuals can be trained, organizations can be trained. They offer different trainings. And it's not the only one, but it's one that is pretty widespread. And SAMHSA, like the federal government, recommends it. Some other trainings that we did, I'm not necessarily with the club, but I've been involved in youth mental health first aid training. And that one is not just about suicide prevention, but it has a component of that. And what I really like about that one too is I think one of the difficult things with this work is that we're often responding to the crisis when the crisis is happening versus that true prevention piece, where youth mental health first aid, the thing I like about it is there's a big part of the curriculum that is about non-crisis versus crisis, and how we can constantly be in connection with the people in our lives and assessing kind of like where they're at to hopefully catch, we always talk about the signs and symptoms, but it's like, what if we could do something that prevented those signs and symptoms from happening in the first place?
Right.
So I really like that one as well.
Yeah. As a parent, you have 2 boys, and they're young.
They're 10 and 8.
Yeah. So being a parent, Going back to one of the points that you made, it was tough for some of the parents. That's a barrier that you find, not with students, but with parents. So was that surprising for you to hear?
Not really, because I think it goes back to stigma. I
Mhm.
think that, and it spans all different communities. I
Mhm.
think that we live in a society where we don't want to look like something is not right.
Mm.
Right,
We want to put on this facade that everything's fine, like our family's good.
right.
And so I think that that causes people to hide it, causes people to feel like they can't talk about it, or even the pressure that I think the youth today feel to be good and perfect academically, athletically, socially,
Mm.
all those pressures that even if their parents would understand, I think that there's students that feel like they don't want to upset their parents. They don't want to look like they can't handle it.
Mm.
Um, but then I also think that there are parents who look at it's like we've all been there, and obviously like when we were young it was different. Um, but I think that that mentality of what do you have to be sad about, or why could you possibly not be happy? Like you're fine. I think that we dismiss it instead of validating,
Mhm.
sometimes like we don't feel good
Mm.
mentally, and that's okay.
That's okay.
And yeah, and it goes a long way to just say it's okay to not be okay, and
Mm.
to let someone kind of explain how they're feeling versus moving them out of it of don't cry, like you're fine. And
Mhm. Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to do like with my boys, because I do think it happens so often with
Mhm.
boys that,
Right.
toughen up, and then those boys then grow up to be dads who then don't they haven't had that modeled for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying my best to, like, we name our emotions. We talk about that it's okay to be angry or disappointed, and I think that also it's getting away from just like happy, mad, sad, of trying
Mhm.
to like what is a lot of times anger is really fear.
Right.
Um
You said a lot of great things there. One of the things that came to mind, though, for me, was you're in HSE, and there are sort of stereotypes about Hamilton County, the wealthiest county in Indiana, and there's Carmel and Fishers and Westfield and Noblesville. That those kinds of challenges don't exist or are not supposed to exist in a place like Hamilton County. So can you talk a little bit about how that kind of perspective is maybe a barrier to more people getting help?
yeah, I think that it not only is there that pressure to perform, but then also this this notion of like you have everything that you could possibly need. What do you and it's like this right here doesn't know how much money my parents make, what house I live
Mhm.
in, and it doesn't really matter who you are, where you live, like you're gonna have struggles. And I think sometimes we in Hamilton County, it's common too for maybe the students or the youth are alone more because mom and dad are not home, or they aren't as, I mean, there are a lot of parents that are still like very involved, but I think it's just like, oh well, we don't have that problem here. And I mean, I've had students before that they couldn't even tell people that they were in therapy. And I was actually at a conference today, and one of the things that was brought up about suicide prevention in general, um, talked about how you would think that like a really tight knit community, um, or a small community, you would think that that connectedness would be
Mhm.
a protective factor, but it actually becomes this like comparison, or this we don't want to look like we are the ones that have the student or the child that is struggling, and so
Mhm.
then people hide it even more. And when the adults, they mentioned in this conference, when the adults aren't talking about it, whether it be mental health in general, suicide, it, our youth then have to kind of like fill in the blanks.
Mm.
And that is not good, because then, you've got them trying to make sense of it, whether it's someone that they know that died by suicide or attempted. If we're afraid to talk about it, because the number one myth of thinking that the more we talk about it, that it might put it in their mind, which is not true, that is really problematic too, because then it's no one's discussing the facts or letting us know the truth for like how you can get help. It's like, oh, we're just going to not talk about that.
Right.
Yeah, small city, Fishers, Hamilton County, very tight knit, like you said, but it gives sometimes the opposite, gives more visibility, more vulnerability.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the, in my view, one of the greatest Americans ever, Frederick Douglass, said it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And so you mentioned earlier about how a lot of men sort of grow up with these, my word, not yours, but these sort of antiquated notions of what it means to be a man. And so the organization that I'm honored to lead, Fathers and Family Center, we see the results of a lot of that. This is our 30th anniversary. We've helped, approximately 22,000 men in that period. About 90% African American, effectively 100% low income. Depending on the cohort, 40 to 60% are coming out of the penal system. And we address a lot of issues. We do a lot of repairing. We attempt to do a lot of repairing. And one portion of which is we talk about, it's good to emote in front of your children, to hug your children, to cry in front of your children. Not that all of the men have a different perspective on that. So that's not true, but a fair amount of them have some of these antiquated notions, and we find ourselves trying to address those issues so they don't pass that on to their children.
Yeah, I think that it's amazing, because then it normalizes that we have good days and bad days, and we have good moments and bad moments, and we're not alone to deal with those emotions when they can become really overwhelming. And especially for someone that doesn't know how to deal with that, I think that's when it festers and it grows, versus if you can say, you know what, yeah, like that was really a pretty terrible thing, and to be allowed to just sit in that. And I'm learning that too. I feel like I didn't learn that, and so I'm trying to figure out ways to ensure. And I did that as a teacher. Like we would, and even just building those relationships and connecting and talking about, I think letting someone know that like you care about how they're actually doing can really go a long way too. But I think that we are often so busy and caught up in our own day-to-day what's going on that we don't always make the space for that. And so then people feel like, oh, well, they don't care. They don't want to actually know, because they don't have time to talk to me.
A lot of families have become more comfortable with saying I love you to their kids, which is great. And I think that's tremendous. One of the next steps, I think, tell me if I'm onto something here, is it even more helpful to normalize saying things like, you can talk to me, and making that a regular practice, that you can always you can always confide in me, and that, those kinds of statements, that I'll always be here for you if you ever want to talk about anything, or if you ever have these kinds of really frightening emotions and feelings, if you're ever in a dark place, those things. Is that the next step?
I think so. Making yourself available, making it known that you are there when they are ready. I think that there's times when like something might have happened, maybe it be a breakup or they didn't make a team and they aren't in the headspace right then when they're not kind of regulated to talk, but letting them know, hey, like when you are ready, I am here. And one of the things I find helpful, my kids talk a lot in the car. So, or if you are doing an activity, if your family likes to play games like board games, or if your family is like, I know during COVID, I feel like we've gotten away from it, but we did a lot of puzzles.
Yeah, right.
And So like you're kind of like the focus isn't like a therapeutic, just like staring at them like,
Mhm.
so what do you want to talk about? Or like anything you want to tell me? But
Mhm.
they're able to kind of relax, know that mom and dad care and that they're there for you. And I try to, like, sometimes my own kids will talk to me about stuff that I hate to say, but is not super interesting to me, like their Minecraft or whatever game they're playing. But I feel like I've been told that even when it's stuff that seems very just random, no big deal,
Yeah.
them knowing that you prioritize what they have to say
Yeah.
and that you are listening and that they can trust you, I think goes a long way. And the studies say that, having that one trusted adult can make, and it's great if it's your parent. Sometimes it's not. And I think that, as a community, you can also, whether it be like through coaching youth sports or faith-based things, like there are other ways that you can mentor other kids that aren't your own. But I do
Mm.
think that really letting them know that you're there and that you
Mm.
care and that they don't have to go through it alone, and knowing that, like, I feel like we would not think twice about having to explicitly tell our child, if they had a terrible headache, let me know. Like, I feel like it's
Mm.
just like our physical health is
Right.
so common that we know, okay, I need to go to the doctor.
Mhm.
But can we talk about mental health that way for the whole population, not just someone who might be at risk, but where can we start with it becoming normal that, hey, sometimes, like, just like our stomach might hurt, we might not feel real good
Mhm.
mentally, and
Mhm.
that's okay, and we need to address it, and we have professionals that can help, and but you need to tell me, and so that we can kind of keep tabs on that and it not be this hidden thing of, oh, I've got to act like everything's fine because otherwise people are going to judge me. Like that,
Mhm.
listening to them non-judgmentally is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're speaking with Leslie Caliz, who is trained in mental health and also specifically in suicide prevention. This is Daddy Issues, and we will be right back.
Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite Clear Aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite Clear Aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug, ignored a leaky faucet, pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look like that? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. But there's an easier way. Thumbtack is the app that makes it easier to care for your home. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, search, chat, and book highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Download Thumbtack and start caring for your home the easier way.
Welcome back to Daddy Issues. Larry, what was your question for Leslie?
Hopefully we're past the worst part of COVID. But obviously, there are many things that children and adults are going to be dealing with for many years to come. Is the mental weight of having kids having to be on Zoom for 8 hours a day or whatever it is, during class and all that. So it has. Have you found the effects of COVID exacerbating these feelings of isolation and loneliness, et cetera, and all these other factors that can lead to suicide?
Yeah, I think that just that disruption to what was normal,
Hmm.
that and that like fear of the unknown, of not knowing like when it was going to be over, who it was going to affect, and watching that, like, the adults, we didn't know
Mhm.
what was going on or how to
Right.
cope or how to respond. And so of course, like the isolation and just the depressing parts of like missing out on stuff that would normally have been a big milestone, or even if it was a birthday. And so I think and it changed the way I think youth socialize and how they learn and I think there are some things that like they did connect with one another because they were going through this shared experience. But I also, home is not always a safe place for some students and kids and youth. And so I think that impacted it too, because they might have been in a situation where maybe mom and dad fight a lot, and now it's like we're all home under the same roof and it's constant and we can't get away. So I do think that impacted. I think it also elevated the conversation in a way. I think that it kind of is what got more people talking about mental health and the well-being and the importance of that. I still just think that a lot of people still treat it as like like that's not like we don't deal with that, like our family's fine, and it's not often a problem until it's a problem.
You
And
mean
then
even good kids in Hamilton County who play sports and get good grades? That might be something to even think about. And we've seen that in our own community, and it tears families apart. And it's something that is now, we're starting to get there. We're moving this conversation to the forefront, at least. So stop the stigma. That's to me, that's what it's all about. Maybe by the next generation, it will be much less of a taboo topic. We've tried. I know, Larry, you've probably had conversations. We've known people, and Leslie, you have, and Larry, you have. We all have been affected by this, and we've seen this a reality with quote unquote good kids, good families, good parents, right?
Yeah. Coincidentally, I actually had met with a friend of mine today whose son was in his early 20s and committed suicide. It is impossible for me to imagine being alive as a parent after going through that. I mean, obviously you have to go on, certainly if you have other kids.
And that, I think the more we can talk about the treatment that's available, the hope of knowing that those feelings, while they may be really, really intense, won't last forever. But when we're too afraid to talk about it for fear that it might put that in someone else's mind, or that it will make us look less than, then we're not able to have those conversations that really instill hope and that things can get better, and letting them know where to go for that help,
Right.
of who can you talk to, knowing that help is available, I think
What's the
huge.
best thing, Leslie, for parents who might be having these kinds of, I don't know, challenges, or like where can, and I'm not saying everybody, but if you're a parent and if you're going through, you think that there are some things that need to be resolved, what's the best place to reach out? Through the school system, or what kind of resources are there?
I think so. Like through the school, typically schools have different protocol, but you might have where like it goes through their counselor first, and then if there's a social worker, they could be referred, they could be screened, like the Columbia screener is one. I think your pediatrician can even be something that can help. And then also I think just having that open conversation, even when things are good, like not waiting until the pressure of life has gotten to this like boiling point of, and I'm a proponent of therapy for everyone. Like I think it is so helpful to have a third party that you can talk to about life, because I think that's all. We all have our friends, but our friends are going through stuff too, and
Right.
you want to be able to talk to them, but I also, you don't want to just have to burden them with all these, fears and thoughts for you. But I think the school, that leads me to another thought though, with all this, as we have this conversation of stigma reduction and trying to prevent, we're running into the problem where then like now people want professional help, and there's lots of barriers there too, because
Okay.
we don't have enough people to do the work, and insurance problems and costs. I would start with the schools first if they are young.
As Jason and I were talking about how to wrap up the year in terms of the podcast, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you this month is we talked about SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and for a lot of people this time of year, it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all these, in theory, happy times. But this is a very, very difficult time of year for a lot of people. Maybe they lost a parent or a grandparent, around this time of year. So can you talk about how that affects us?
Yeah, and I think like even with like just it getting dark sooner, it just sometimes you have that feeling of closed in. And so I think I struggle with that. Something I'm intentional about, what is an activity that I can do that I look forward to, whether that be meeting a friend for dinner, or is it we're going to plan like a movie night? Because I think a lot of people are recharged and energized, and that self-care has to do with being outside. But that's hard at this time of the year. And also the holidays, like you mentioned, with if they lost someone, but even just the stress of trying to have the perfect holiday season. So I think recognizing that and giving ourselves the grace of, it's okay if this doesn't feel like the happiest time of the year, and leaning on people who can be not necessarily like accountability that like you need to make sure that I'm happy every day, but can check in with one another and just make sure that we're intentional about sharing with how we're feeling, how we're doing. Maybe it's, going to do some self-care, whether it be at the gym or going to get a massage. I have a friend that went today for a massage, and she's like, I just feel like every night I go home, I'm tired, it's dark. I'm like, hey, like you need those little pick-me-ups, and finding ways to kind of not just telling ourselves like, oh, self-care is important. Schedule it, put it on your calendar, have a friend do something with you. And I think that is important.
That's really good, because we give lip service to self-care, and then we end up, watching TV, eating chips. I mean, and maybe that's self-care because I do enjoy it, right?
Could be.
Yeah. I always also feel the pressure. Ever since I was a kid, I always felt like this is the best Christmas ever. And every year it was like it's a wonderful family time and all these things. And it's okay to have a weird Christmas sometimes, or to, it's okay to be blue and to have those feelings and to let somebody else know about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What else can we offer as practical tips, something to take away, to put in your pocket as a father or mother?
Yeah, and especially as a part of the answer, if you could talk about social media and it's how it plays into a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that one of the tips, social media is hard because there's that comparison where we see everyone's best moments, and then we're stuck feeling like we are not having such good moments and like we're missing out and that sort of thing. But that open line of communication of letting your children know that you are there, and also being vulnerable with what you're going through, modeling that, showing them that you can talk about like, I'm having a really hard day. I've just been sad today, and I'm sorry if I kind of seem like I'm snapping, letting them know that you struggle too. And then also, I think allowing them to know if they can't talk to you about it, that someone can, and that you are on their team to figure out what is going to work best for them, but that you don't want them to deal with it all alone.
Yeah.
And I think encouraging some breaks with social media of just whether, and some, students are in activities and sports. And so I think that that's good to get away from it, but some family time that doesn't involve, and it goes back on us too, because I feel like as a parent, I'm on this thing all the time. And I want my kids to know that what they have to say, what they need from me is important, and not just me being, addicted to my phone and technology as well.
Be present, live in the moment.
Yeah. And connecting and ensuring that in that family that there's like that sense of belonging. I think that everyone needs to feel like they matter and that you're a team and you're there to support them. And no matter how difficult it is, they don't have to go through that alone and hide it, and that you're not going to be upset because they're struggling. I think they're afraid to disappoint their parent.
Yeah, amazing. It's crazy. And we don't always remember what it's like to be a teenager because that was so long ago. For some of us, it was long ago.
For some of us, it was a long time ago.
And that the social media part, I think, is the biggest thing there, where it's like, I can't imagine constantly having that in my, we would go home from school and, if things were bothering you, it wasn't you just staring you in the face, and they that a lot.
Yeah, we had that talk a little bit on a previous episode. I'm glad to hear you say that. It confirms what we heard earlier. That's so true. So thank you for sharing all this. This has been exactly, and you did a great job of summarizing it.
Very informative. Thank you so much. This is going to be helpful to a lot of people. Thank you.
Leslie, great to see you, and have a great holiday with the boys. And folks, we'll see you next time. Happy holidays to everyone from Daddy Issues. Thanks for listening to Daddy Issues. Be sure to connect with us on social media. Feel free to email us, dads@thedaddyissuespodcast.com. Daddy Issues is a podcast from the Fathers and Family Center of Indianapolis, Indiana. To learn more about the programs of Fathers and Family Center, visit fathersandfamilycenter.org.